I came home through the Denver snow, expecting a quiet night, only to find my 9-year-old son collapsed on the front steps, while my brother watched as if it were nothing. The paramedic who arrived went rigid the moment he saw my brother. He said he'd seen this exact scene before in other states. The hospital confirmed what my family tried to deny. Aiden hadn't fallen. He'd been drugged, and the truth behind it, all a hidden inheritance clause tied to my son's mental stability, was darker than anything I imagined. The snow was falling in slow, heavy flakes when I turned onto my street in Aurora, the kind of quiet Colorado night where even the air feels muffled. My heels were off, tossed onto the passenger seat after hours of smiling through a corporate year-end gala. I was all ready, thinking about hot tea and a warm shower when my headlights swept across my front porch, then everything inside me stopped. Aiden was crumpled on the top step, small body twisted to one side, one glove missing. Steam rising faintly from his breath like it was fighting for a way out. His backpack was still strapped on, as if he'd been on his way inside and simply collapsed. For a heartbeat, I couldn't even hear the wind. Logan leaned against the railing, vape pen glowing blue near his hand. "Relax, Naomi." He slipped. "Kids fall." Stephen and Marla stepped out behind him, both holding mugs of cocoa, both far. To calm for what I was seeing, Stephen said, "You're overreacting. It's icy. He probably just scared himself," Marla added. "Aiden gets dramatic when you're not around. You know that?" The world narrowed to Aiden's lips blue, barely moving. My purse hit the concrete. I dropped to my knees, the cold slicing through. My tights, my dress, soaking instantly. My fingers shook so violently I almost missed his pulse the first time. It was there, but faint, wrong. I fumbled my phone twice before managing to dial 911. "My son, he's not breathing." "Right, he's 9, please hurry." The dispatcher's calm voice guided me through the haze. "Check his airway, keep him warm, don't move his neck." My hands were numb, but I forced them to work, cupping his cheeks, calling his name. "Aiden, baby mommy's here, stay with me. Please stay with me." The wail of the ambulance cut through the snow 10 minutes later. Paramedics rushed up the steps, led by a tall man with a Denver health badge reading Jacob Ruiz. He knelt beside Aiden, checked pupils, breathing, pulse, then his eyes lifted to Logan. The color drained from his face. He stood slowly and motioned me aside. "Ma'am," he whispered, "is that man really your brother?" I nodded, confused and trembling. Jacob exhaled sharply. "I've responded to cases in Albuquerque and Tulsa that looked exactly like this. Same pattern, same explanation, same attitude." He glanced back at Logan, who was scrolling his phone with one eyebrow raised, utterly unconcerned. I felt a crack run through my chest. "What are you saying?" Jacob lowered his voice even further. "I'm saying this doesn't look like a fall. And I need to get your son into the ambulance right now." They lifted Aiden onto the stretcher, his small body dwarfed by the orange straps. I climbed into the back without being asked. Jacob didn't stop me. Through the rear window, I saw Logan lift his phone and start typing rapidly. Stephen slipped, an arm around Marla, the two of them watching the ambulance doors close as if they were observing a neighbor's problem, not their own family. Inside the ambulance, Jacob worked quickly. Oxygen mask, warm blankets, temperature monitor. "His vitals are unstable," he murmured. "This isn't hypothermia alone." I swallowed hard, tears freezing on my lashes. "Then what is it?" He hesitated. "I'll know more at the hospital. But I need you to prepare yourself. This may not be an accident." Siren howled as we sped toward Denver Children's Hospital. I held Aiden's hand, cold and limp, in mine, and felt the truth rising like a tide I could no longer hold back. Something terrible had happened at my father's house tonight. Something none of them were willing to say. And I was about to find out just how deep the betrayal went. If you're still reading, buckle up. Story doesn't get softer, but it does get clearer. Before we continue, drop a comment with your city or just the word insane. And hit subscribe because what the doctor told me next changed everything. The sliding doors of Denver Children's hissed open as the gurney shot through. And the warmth of the ER hit me like a wave, but nothing in that building felt remotely safe. Fluorescent lights blurred above us while Jacob called out vitals. Nurses rushed beside him, and I followed, soaked dress clinging to my legs, heart hammering so loudly I could barely hear my own footsteps. They pushed Aiden into treatment room. 14, and a woman in navy scrubs stepped in with the calm authority of someone who had seen too many nights like mine. Her badge read Dr. Melissa Chang, Pediatric Emergency. She examined Aiden with practiced precision, ordered labs, fluids, and monitoring. Then motioned for me to step into the alcove just outside the curtain. Her voice was gentle but steady, as she explained that Aiden's talk screen showed dangerously elevated diphenhydramine. Traces of codeine, dehydration, and bruising, inconsistent with a simple fall. And that Colorado law required immediate notification of CPS and law enforcement for suspected poisoning or intentional harm. I felt the wall behind me before I realized I was leaning into it, the world tilting as guilt and disbelief crashed together in my chest. 'Cause I had sent my son to my father's house thinking it was safe. A nurse called out from inside the room, and Melissa's expression softened before she added that Aiden was stabilizing but would likely wake confused and frightened. I needed to prepare myself. I stepped back into the room on legs that felt rubbery and hollow, and when Aiden finally blinked awake under the glow of the monitor, his breath was shallow but steady. His small hand searched for mine as if he were terrified I might vanish. "Mommy?" "Right here, baby." His voice was barely a whisper. "Did I do something wrong?" My throat burned as I shook my head, brushing his damp hair back. "No, sweetheart, not ever." He swallowed hard, eyes wide, the kind of wide that comes from fear learned too young. Uncle Logan said, if I didn't drink the special orange juice, he'd tell everyone I still wet the bed. I froze, pulse thudding so violently I could hear it in my ears. He said it was for brave kids. Aiden continued, his breath hitching, but it tasted like medicine. Then my legs felt funny. I couldn't walk right. "What happened next, baby?" "He pulled me outside," he said. "He said it would look real if I slipped one step, just one. He said you'd freak out and everyone would blame you for working too much." My lungs stopped for a second, grief and fury, knotting so tightly I could barely inhale. But I forced myself to stay steady because he needed calm, not the storm I felt inside. "You didn't do anything wrong, Aiden. Not one thing." A knock on the wall made me turn as a woman with a clipboard approached, wearing a badge that read Colorado Child Protective Services. She introduced herself formally, explained she needed to speak privately with me about Aiden's injuries, our family's living arrangements, and any prior concerning behavior. And I realized this was now bigger than a medical emergency. It was a legal and protective one, too. She asked if anyone in the home had access to medication, if Aiden had ever come home unusually drowsy before, and if Logan had been alone with him. The words spilled out of me in fragments because suddenly everything I had ignored or brushed aside clicked together with a clarity that sickened me. I told her about the Ciroc NGL and Gone Logan gave Aiden a few weeks ago. The unexplained bruises, the sudden clinginess I'd chalked up to work stress, and the accusatory looks Stephen and Marla gave me every time I questioned anything. The CPS worker wrote carefully, her expression unreadable, then informed me that a temporary no-contact order for Logan would be filed immediately, and home interviews would begin within 24 hours. My chest tightened as she added that evidence of potential poisoning would likely trigger a multi-agency investigation. Only after she left did I realize my hands were trembling uncontrollably. I sat beside Aiden, holding his small fingers gently between mine. As he drifted back to sleep under warm blankets and steady beeping monitors, a single truth settled cold and sharp in my mind. Something at my father's house had been wrong for a long time, and tonight was only the first layer peeling back. And if Logan was involved in this, I was terrified of what I was about to uncover next. The CPS worker had barely left when the weight of everything she'd said pressed down on me. But there was no time to fall apart. I needed paperwork, insurance cards, medical history, anything the hospital might ask for, so I drove to my father's house, the same house where Aiden had been hurt. The snow had stopped, but the night felt sharper, as if the cold itself were warning me not to go inside. The living room lights were still on, faint shadows flickering from the muted TV. And for a moment, I stood in the doorway, listening to the silence, trying to understand how a place that once smelled like my childhood now felt like an empty shell. I moved quickly through the hallway, grabbing the folder where I usually kept Aiden's documents. Still, something else caught my eye. The bottom drawer of Stephen's old oak desk was slightly open, as if someone had shoved a stack of papers inside, in a hurry and forgotten to close it. A thin corner of a legal-sized envelope stuck out. I pulled it free. It was a photocopy of Raymond Blake's updated trust, stamped by a Wyoming law firm 3 months ago. Page after page of legal language blurred until I reached one highlighted section, the mental competency clause, in the words fused together like ice forming over water. Suppose the primary beneficiary, Aiden Blake, is determined by 2 licensed physicians to exhibit chronic psychological or cognitive impairment inhibiting independent financial management. In that case, the full principal shall be transferred immediately to the next eligible male descendant. Logan Blake. My hands went cold. The trust wasn't small. It was more than $3.8 million in real estate, savings, and business liquidations from my late grandfather. I sank onto the edge of the couch, staring at the clause, trying to understand how long Stephen had known. How long had Logan known? How long had they planned for Aiden to be unstable? Then another detail hit me like a punch. Stephen's name was printed on the signature line as co-trustee, meaning he had legal access, oversight, and knowledge. A knowledge he had chosen not to share with me. My phone buzzed in my hand. It was Eric Monroe following up on my earlier frantic call. I answered in a shaky whisper. "Eric, I found something, and I think it's worse than I thought." "Tell me what?" "You've got," he said. I read it to him word for word. There was a beat of silence. "Naomi, that's a motive. A real one. And if Logan knew this existed, he wouldn't need to kill Aiden. He'd just need to make him look unfit." I pressed my fingers to my forehead, nausea rolling through me. "Eric, can you check Logan's movements, purchases, anything?" "I've already started," he said. "And you're not gonna like this." He sent a rapid series of pings to my phone. Motel receipts, gas station stops, large cash withdrawals. "Logan's been traveling," Eric continued. "Albuquerque, Tulsa, Wichita, Cheyenne. Short trips, always cash, always cheap rooms near local clinics or pharmacies." My breath caught. Why those cities? They all had unexplained child collapse incidents in the last year. I found old local articles, tiny blurbs no one paid attention to. A cold realization slowly crystallized. Logan wasn't improvising. He'd been rehearsing. I stood and began pacing the living room, trust papers shaking in my grip. Stephen had to know something. He had to. His signature is right here. "Eric, maybe he thought Logan was just pushing limits," Eric said carefully. "But Naomi, if he saw any of those bruises on Aiden and said nothing, then he chose a side." Looked toward the hallway leading to Stephen's bedroom, suddenly remembering every time he brushed off Aiden's complaints. Every time he told me to stop hovering. Every time he insisted Aiden was too sensitive because you worked too much. He hadn't been dismissing me. He had been conditioning me not to question anything. The realization burned. I gathered the folder, the trust documents, and the pictures Eric had sent, and walked out of the house without turning off a single light. The cold air outside hit my face like a slap, clearing my mind enough for one terrifying truth to take shape. If Logan had traveled to 4 states practicing on other children, then what he did to Aiden wasn't an accident or a moment of anger or a terrible lapse in judgment. It was the plan. And now that I had seen the trust, the claws, the travels, the Pat and I knew exactly what I had to do next. I started the car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. Tomorrow, I wasn't going to be a scared mother anymore. Tomorrow, I was going to be a threat. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the trust claws glowing like a warning sign, and the motel receipts Eric sent flickering behind it. By sunrise, I knew one thing. If Logan had practiced on other children, their parents deserved to know the truth, and I needed their stories to prove what he'd done to Aiden wasn't an isolated incident. I called the detective Eric trusted, a man named Howard Rivas from Boulder PD. I explained everything. The poisoning, the claws, the travel pattern, the bruises, the CPS order. He listened without interrupting, then informed me that because the potential victims were in multiple states, I technically had standing as a related party in a related case. If these families are willing to talk, he said, I can help you. Document it and make sure it gets to the right people. That's all I need. The first mother lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I booked the earliest flight and landed before noon, the desert sun making the entire city glare like a polished stone. We met in a quiet park on the east side. She arrived holding her son's hand, a boy with wary eyes and a baseball cap pulled low. Her name was Alicia Torres, and when I showed her Logan's picture, she didn't speak. She just closed her eyes and exhaled like a dam breaking. That's him, she whispered. He called himself Luke. Said he was giving out free Fanta for a kids' video project. I felt something twist painfully in my gut. Alicia pulled out her phone and opened a Ring doorbell clipped in the grainy footage. Oh. Logan hoodie baseball cap, same stance-handed, a bright orange bottle to her son, waved and walked away. 10 minutes later, the boy collapsed in their driveway. Toxicology had shown high diphenhydramine levels, but doctors blamed an accidental ingestion from allergy meds kept in a kitchen drawer. We knew that wasn't it, Alicia said, but no one listened. Her affidavit was notarized at a UPS store. Half an hour later, the second parent was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. His father named Robert King. His son had fainted during a summer reading program at the public library, collapsing on the carpet between 2 shelves. Robert met me in the library parking lot, wearing an old denim jacket and carrying a thick manila folder, as if it weighed more than paper should. I saved everything, he told me, because I knew it wasn't just heat exhaustion. Inside the folder were hospital records showing an acute antihistamine overdose staff statements, describing a friendly volunteer handing out a punch security. Footage printed as photos stills. One still made my chest seize. Logan, standing beside a folding table, ladling red punch into small cups. The same lazy posture, the same half smirk. Robert clenched his jaw as he handed me the stack. My kid had nightmares for months. You take that man down, you hear me? I will, I promised. The third family lived in Wichita, Kansas, and meeting them was the moment everything clicked into an unshakable pattern. Darla Peterson showed me her Ring camera clips while her 9-year-old son sat on the couch clutching a stuffed dinosaur. He told my boy his mom had asked him to drop off a new Gatorade flavor. Darla said, voice trembling with anger rather than fear. But I was at work all day. I never met that man. Her video showed Logan stepping onto their porch, offering a bottle, then walking back toward a silver sedan with Colorado plates, a detail that made my skin prickle. Darla then handed me a small plastic evidence bag she'd kept, the empty Gatorade bottle. The hospital said there wasn't enough for a full tox screen, she said, but I froze it anyway. I didn't trust the system to care. I found myself whispering, thank you, even though the words weren't nearly enough. The last stop was Cheyenne, Wyoming, where a mother and father welcomed me into their living room with a kind of exhausted, Kindness only parents who've survived trauma can show. Their son didn't speak at all. He just drew quietly at the edge of the coffee table, glancing up at me with eyes too old for his age. They handed me a USB drive containing gas station footage from the night before their son collapsed. Logan, wearing a puffy jacket, pouring something white and powdery into a sports drink bottle in the far corner of the store. "We reported it," the father said. The clerk remembered a guy paying cash, but no one followed up. They said these cases rarely go anywhere, and then, softer, make this one go somewhere. I walked out into the Wyoming cold with 4 affidavits, 4 sets of medical records, 4 families' worth of grief and fear, and one undeniable truth linking them all. Logan had perfected a pattern, a method, a script. When my plane touched down in Denver that night, my phone buzzed with a message from Agent Lauren Ortiz, the name Detective Rivas had forwarded to us. Her text was short but sharp. "I've reviewed everything. We've been tracking similar incidents for months. You just connected the final dots. I need to speak with you immediately." I sat in the back of the rideshare, staring out at the city's glow, feeling both terrified and strangely at ease. For the first time since Aiden collapsed, I wasn't drowning. I was fighting back, and Logan, whether he understood it or not, had just run out of places to hide. Agent Lauren Ortiz from the Denver FBI field office met me in a small conference room on the 3rd floor of the hospital. Place so neutral that it almost erased the weight of what we were discussing. She laid out the affidavits, the medical files, the travel logs, and the trust clause across the table like pieces of a puzzle, finally snapping into place. Her face didn't show kit, showed recognition. They had been tracking a pattern of child collapses across several states, still without a clear motive or a confirmed suspect. Every case had slipped through the cracks due to medical anomalies or parental oversight. "Until now," she said, tapping the highlighted trust clause with her pen. "This is motive, means, and repetitive conduct. This turns your brother into a viable target for a federal investigation." My stomach tightened, hearing the words, "your brother." But I nodded. Double quotes, "What do you need from me?" Lauren folded her hands, eyes sharp. "We need a place where he shows up willingly, where he is complacent, careless, and publicly present. A location with cameras, witnesses, and zero opportunity for him to claim coercion or editing." I blinked, unsure where she was going. "Your company has a major gala coming up in 4 days," she continued. "The Denver Tech Summit. Industry leaders, media, state officials, open bar, lots of security." My breath stilled. "Hell, come," I whispered. "Logan loves being seen next to successful people. He'll treat it like a stage." Lauren nodded. "It's exactly what we're counting on." The plan formed quickly. I would send a warm, family-invited message about attending the gala and celebrating a new beginning. Logan, Stephen, and Marla would receive physical invitations designed by the event team. FBI technical agents would blend in as photographers, caterers, and security staff. Cameras, real and undercover, would capture Logan's reaction the moment evidence appeared on the main screen. If he tried to run, undercover agents would intercept. If he confessed or became volatile, mics hidden in the stage decor would catch every word. "The key," Lauren said, "is that he cannot see this as a trap. He needs to arrive relaxed, confident, convinced he's still untouchable." I exhaled slowly. I can do that. Back at home, I drafted the message, "Company Gala, Friday night. Formal, where I want us to start fresh, put tension behind us. It might be nice to celebrate together for once." Logan responded in less than 2 minutes. "Fancy party? Open bar? I'll be there." Stephen replied next. "We're glad you reached out, honey." Marla added a string of heart emojis. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty reading their messages. I felt clarity. I felt purpose. I felt something I hadn't felt since the night Aiden collapse control. The following 2 days passed in a haze of preparation. FBI technicians tested the projection equipment at the Marriott Ballroom. Lauren checked exit routes and coordinated with the Denver PD to prevent collateral panic. Eric arrived with 2 suitcases of organized evidence timelines, clips, hotel, receipts, surveillance, stills, and handed everything over to the federal team. "You ready for this?" he asked quietly. "Have to be." The morning of the gala, I stood in front of my mirror wearing a navy satin gown, the kind of dress that announces composure even when the person inside it is barely breathing. My hands shook only once when I clasped the thin gold bracelet Aiden had given me last Christmas. "For luck, Mommy." I pressed it against my pulse. "Stay with me, baby. It's just for you." By 5:30 p.m., the ballroom buzzed with executives, reporters, venture capitalists, and tech founders, all unaware that half the catering staff were undercover federal agents. Stage lights glowed warm gold, softening the edges of what was about to become a very public reckoning. My boss greeted me with a proud smile, unaware that the USB drive I handed the AV technician didn't contain a corporate achievement video, but the truth. At 6:10 p.m., the doors opened. Logan was the first of my family to walk in. He wore a sleek charcoal suit, as if he were stepping onto a runway. His hair slicked back, his smile confident. He hugged me too tightly, like nothing had ever happened. Like my son hadn't almost died on his watch. Stephen and Marla followed, dressed carefully, their faces trained into polite warmth. "You look beautiful," Marla whispered. "Big night," Stephen added, patting my shoulder. I guided them to the VIP table dead center of the room, under the clearest camera angles. Logan clinked his champagne glass against mine. "To new beginnings, sis." I lifted my glass with a steady hand to truth. The lights dimmed on cue. My heart did not. The Denver Tech Summit opening video began to play. But I knew down to the second when it would change. When the corporate graphics would go dark, when the first image of Logan appeared 20 feet tall above the stage. This wasn't revenge. This was exposure. This was safety. This was the moment everything he'd hidden would finally have nowhere left to run. And as the screen flickered to white, I felt the entire ballroom shift. Like the air itself was bracing for the truth. The ballroom lights dimmed until only the soft glow of the stage remained. Conversations quieted. Champagne flutes paused midair. A thin hush rippled across the room. People sensed something was shifting, though no one yet understood what. I stood beside the stage steps, pretending to review my acceptance speech, heart steady in a way that felt almost unnatural. It wasn't calm. It was a purpose. The opening corporate video ended. The final logo faded. Screen went dark. Then the first image appeared. Logan in Albuquerque, hoodie up, handing an orange soda to a child. Gasps fluttered through the room like wings. Logan froze, champagne glass hovering halfway to his lips. The second image replaced the first Logan in Tulsa, ladling punch into tiny paper cups. Soft murmurs, sharper this time. People are twisting in their seats, a reporter leaning forward. The third image, Logan in Wichita, stepping back from a porch. Gatorade bottle extended in a child's hand. Stephen's face drained of color. The fourth Logan in Cheyenne, pouring white powder into a sports drink in a gas station corner. Unaware of the camera above him, Marla whispered, "Oh my God," her hand flying to her mouth. And then came the slide that ripped the entire room open. Page 3 of the Trust, clause highlighted. In yellow, Adam Blake, chronic psychological impairment. Beneficiary transfer. Next, male descendant. Logan Blake. A collective inhale swept the ballroom. Logan stood up so abruptly his chair screeched, tipping backward onto the floor. He looked from the screen to me, to the agents posing as photographers, to the crowd now staring at him with horrified recognition. "What is this?" he barked. "What the hell is this?" No one answered. The next sound was the quiet click of a microphone being activated. I stepped onto the stage. This, I said, voice steady through the speakers, is the pattern behind every child. Collapse across 4 states. This is what happened to my son. This is what happened to theirs. Aiden's bracelet brushed my wrist as I lifted my hand toward the screen. And this, I tapped the slide with the claws, is why. All at once, 4 teenagers rose from different tables. 4 boys, older now but still carrying pieces of the children they had been when Logan poisoned them. They turned in unison and pointed directly at him. "That's the man who gave me the drink," the Albuquerque boy said, voice cracking but strong. "He did it to me too," said the boy from Tulsa in the corner. The Wichita boy wiped tears but didn't look away. Logan's face contorted panic, disbelief, rage, all tangled together. No, this is fake. This is edited. She set me up. She's jealous." He lunged toward the stage. 2 servers, really FBI agents, stepped into his path. Logan shoved one, knocking a tray of champagne to the ground. He pushed forward again, saliva flying, voice cracking into a scream. "You think you can do this to me? You think you can take everything from me? My plan was perfect." The room went dead silent at those words. Lauren Ortiz moved before anyone else. Badge flashing. 2 more undercover agents swept in from the sides. Someone near the bar whispered, "Oh my God, it's an arrest." Logan tried to bolt toward the emergency exit, but an agent intercepted him cleanly, hooking an arm around his torso and slamming him to the ground with practiced precision. Cuffs clicked. Stephen lurched forward. "That's my son. Can't just Anne." Agent stepped between them. "Sir, step back." No, he didn't. He didn't. He reached out like he could somehow pull Logan out of federal custody. "Sir, turn around, hands behind your back. You're interfering with a federal arrest." Marla shrieked my name. "Naomi, stop them. He's family. You can't do this to family." I met her eyes. "You already did." Logan writhed on the floor, face blotched purple with rage, spit at the corner of his mouth. "You ruined everything. You ruined an Av." Agent pressed his shoulder down. "That's enough." The ballroom was completely still, every camera pointed, every breath suspended. The live stream counter on the corner screens climbed by the second. 100,000, 500,000. A million? I turned toward the nearest camera, the one I knew would stream to every device watching. "No child," I said quietly, "should be harmed so someone else can chase money. Not mine, not theirs. Not ever." Logan's screams faded as he was dragged toward the service hallway. Stephen was escorted behind him, wrists bound, shoulders slumped. Marla clutched her purse like a lifeline while agents confiscated her phone. I waited until the last cuff closed. Only then did I step off the stage. People parted for me like the tide opening a path. Some touched my arm. Others whispered, "Thank you," but I didn't stop. I didn't need applause. I needed only one thing: safety for Aiden. And for the first time since the night he collapsed on the porch, I felt it begin to return. The courthouse in downtown Denver looked colder than the December sky above it. All glass and steel and sharp lines that felt too clean for the mess my family had become. 11 months had passed since the night of the tech summit, and yet when I stepped into the federal courtroom, the air felt precisely the same: tight, heavy, waiting. Reporters lined the back wall. Victim advocates sat near the aisle. And for boys older, taller, steadier occupied the front row with their parents. The ones who had once handed me shaky affidavits in parking lots and coffee shops across. For states. Logan was brought in last. Orange jumpsuit. Shackles on ankles. Hands cuffed at the waist. But the thing that hit me hardest wasn't the chains. It was the expression. No smirk, no swagger, just a hollow vacancy. Like he had finally met the version of himself he had spent years running from. The clerk read the charges: 5 attempted murders by poisoning across state. Lines interstate transport of controlled substances, conspiracy to defraud a trust child. Endangerment obstructions list felt endless. When the judge began reading the sentence, 42 years, no parole until 27 minimal, Logan didn't flinch. He didn't rage. He didn't fight. He just stared at me. And in that moment, I realized the smirk had never been confidence. It had been armor. Armor he no longer had. Marla stood next. She'd pled guilty weeks earlier, but sentencing still required her to face the families she'd ignored. She sobbed so hard she could barely speak. 8 years at a federal women's facility. She begged the judge to let her say goodbye to Logan. Request. Denied. Stephen was last. He looked older, 10 years older, hair grayed, shoulders caved inward. When the judge said 6 years for willful concealment of felony child abuse, he didn't argue, didn't lift his head, didn't ask for mercy. Only when the gavel snapped did he glance back at me, as if hoping for some final piece of forgiveness. I looked away. The trust dissolved that same week. Every cent, $3.8 million, went into a new irrevocable trust with Aiden as the sole beneficiary and me as trustee. A civil jury added another $2.7 million in punitive damages, which would be locked against any future income Logan might ever earn. Then I made a choice that stunned everyone. I filed to change our names, not for fear, for freedom. Aiden became Aiden Hayes. I became Naomi Hayes. New legal identities, new numbers, new life. We moved south to a quiet suburb outside Colorado Springs. Small brick house, big backyard. New pediatrician, a new therapist who specializes in trauma recovery. Aiden still woke some nights calling out Logan's name, but the screams grew softer over time, dissolving from terror into shadows. Spring brought a new rhythm: homework at the kitchen table, bike rides to the park, slow mornings where I didn't jump at every sound. When Aiden joined a local baseball league, I held my breath the first time he stepped up to bat. But he swung, connected, sent the ball soaring over the fence. He ran the bases with a grin, so wide it lit the entire field. And when he rounded third, he pointed at me just like he had at 7 years old before everything went dark. I cried harder than the night I found him on the porch. Summer came. With it, the unexpected. The 4 boys, the survivors, kept in touch. Their families started a small private group chat, which they jokingly named the 5, including Aiden. They played games online, shared baseball cards, talked through nightmares. They called me Aunt Naomi. They called Aiden little brother. We weren't bound by blood. We were bound by survival. One afternoon in August, Aiden found a letter in the mailbox. The handwriting was shaky, familiar. Stephen. 3 pages. Apologies, explanations, excuses dressed up like regret. Aiden held the envelope with a quiet question in his eyes. Mom, what should we do? I took the pages, walked to the backyard fire pit, and dropped them in. The flame curled around the edges, turning Stephen's words to ash. Aiden roasted marshmallows over the embers, and for the first time he laughed. Fall arrived, crisp and golden. Logan's appeal was denied in a 19-page ruling that called his behavior methodical, predatory, and among the most deliberate this circuit has ever seen. Marla's letters were returned unopened. Stephen's second attempt at contact never reached our new address. I sat on the back porch one night, watching Aiden chase fireflies across the yard. He caught one gently, cupping it in his hands. Look, Mom, he whispered. It's still glowing. We opened our palms together, letting the tiny light drift upward, rising into the dark sky like a piece of hope that finally knew how to fly. And as it disappeared into the night, I realized something. Justice hadn't healed everything, but it had stopped the cycle. It had freed us, and sometimes that is enough.